I have a quick quiz for you that goes outside of this quiz. Just on a piece of paper, I want you to write down the answer to these 3 questions as fast as you can. When I'm done with the quiz, whoever gets them all right will get this book. The latest edition of the Law School Admission Game by Anne Levine. You guys heard of Anne Levine? Okay. These are interesting questions. I hope you guys know them. First one, as fast as you can. 3 times 7. 3 times 17. 13 times 16. All right. Stop. Okay, did anyone get all 3 of those right? You got them all right? Okay, what'd you get?
2151, 208.
Oh, impressive.
That's right.
Okay, let's pause for a half second. How many people got the first one? I hope so. Matt, you're not raising your hand.
Oh yeah.
You got it. It's a
There's gotta
given.
be someone who's the dunce, right? So
Okay,
I'll
what'd you
take
put for
that.
the first one?
I in fact put down 21.
Oh, okay. So
I was lost in thought thinking about the third one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Keep working on that one. In any case, how many people got the second one right? All right, a decent number, maybe half, right? Okay, and you got the third one right. Anyone else get the third one right? 208. Oh, you got it right as well. In the time?
I did, yeah.
Oh, I didn't see your hand.
It's okay. I just wrote it out really quickly.
Oh yeah, that definitely looks like you wrote it out after.
No.
All right, good. All right, here's the deal. So there are things that we know really well. So well that, right, as soon as I said 3 times 7, you're like, yeah, 21, I know that. You didn't even have to calculate it. There are things that we can figure out. Maybe some of you just knew from memory that 3 times 17 is 51. Maybe some of you figured it out, right? 3 times 10 plus 7 times 3, which we just did, would be 30 plus 21, that's 51. And there are some things that we just don't know. I'm assuming you had to figure that out. Did you have to figure that one out, or did you know that?
I wrote it out the second you said it.
Okay, so you did a little multiplication?
Yep.
Cool. The same thing is true on the LSAT. There are things that we know really, really well, and because we know them so well, we can access them instantly on the test, and we do so even though we're under time pressure, right? There are some things that we know but not so well, and so a lot of times you just don't access them. It's kind of an unfortunate waste. Like if you get somewhat familiar with strengthen questions and the strategy for strengthen questions or conclusion questions or role questions, but it's something that you just kind of know, chances are when you're going through the test, you're just going to say, I don't got time for that right now. I've got a test to work on. So you just plow ahead. You might have some vague recollection like, oh yeah, I think we talked about these question types in class, but moving on, just going to answer the question now. And then there are some things we just don't know, right? Logical reasoning is one of those sections, just like the games, in which you can turn it into a science. You can get every question right in logical reasoning if you know exactly what you're looking for and exactly where the traps are, right? So there's not a lot of things that you have to recall when you encounter a conclusion question or a role question or a paradox question, but those things can make the difference. For paradox questions, does anyone remember what you have to keep in mind? Yes?
Why this even though that?
Okay, so that's the question you're asking yourself before you go into the answers, right? Excellent, yeah. So why this even though that? If you can formulate that why question, the correct answer will answer that question the most effectively. Do you remember what you have to keep in mind?
Is that weaker answers? No, it's that. See, that's why I get mixed up on whether weaker or stronger.
Weaker or stronger. So which one is
I
it?
prefer to just understand the passage, I guess.
The passage is the most important thing, for sure.
Yeah, because
Sure.
I get hung up on being like, wait, should I be looking for weaker words or stronger words?
Yeah. Are you saying you shouldn't look for that or know that stuff at all?
No, I'm just saying that that's something I'm still
Still working on, right? And if you don't know it well enough, you're just not going to use it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you know, and by the way, what is it? Stronger. It's stronger language because what it says is which one of the following, if true, does the most to resolve the apparent discrepancy? In a lot of cases, we are getting down to the two most tempting answers, right? Most people are not tempted by some, like 3 of these random stupid answers. Sometimes we're tempted by 3 of them, but usually we get down to 2. And sometimes it's just that one thought, oh yeah, stronger answers are better than weaker answers. And you're looking, it gives you something to focus in on. At the end of the day, content is way more important than word strength. But when you're looking at 2 answer choices and you feel like both of them seem to resolve the paradox, and then you realize one of them says the word many, which just means some, you're like, oh, actually that just means at least one. If at least one person did this, who really cares? Now I can see that this doesn't do as much to resolve the paradox as the other one. You pick it, and now you've chosen the right answer as opposed to spending more time debating between them, or in some cases getting it right, in some cases getting it wrong. So these tips are small, they're simple, but if you can get them to the point where you know them like 3 times 7, then you can use them. Otherwise, they can actually just, well, either you just don't use them at all, or they mess you up because you think, oh, I know weaker answers. And then it's like, wait, that doesn't, well, okay, I guess that's what I should do. And then you pick the wrong answer, right? So these tips can mess you up if you don't get to know them well. In general, they probably just won't do anything. So I wouldn't worry about them messing you up so much. But I'd really hope that you get to the point where right away you're like, oh, conclusion question. I know I got to find the main conclusion before I go into the answer choices. When I'm going into the answer choices, I know I'm looking for an answer choice that's going to restate that conclusion. That's all this is. This is the simplest question type in the logical reasoning section. And the wrong answers tend to be premises, in other words, other parts of the argument, or they tend to be things that you might infer from reading this passage, but not necessarily the thing that the author explicitly tried to conclude in the passage, right? Those are probably the most tempting wrong answers, or the ones that seem like the obvious next step, right? Are you going to be debating answer choices and conclusion questions? In most cases, you're not going to be, because they're easier questions. But there are some hard conclusion questions out there. And if you know those 3 things, if you know conclusion questions like the back of your hand, then that's going to give you the edge to say, oh, I see this answer choice is going a little too far. It's going beyond what the passage is saying. So it's a tempting answer choice, but it's not right because I'm looking for the one that's just restating exactly what the author said. Now, if you can add a little bit more to this. Does anyone remember anything else discussed about conclusion questions? There was a particular test that we talked about. Chaz. The therefore test. So if you get stuck between an intermediate conclusion and the main conclusion, you can use the therefore test and see which one seems to make more sense as the main conclusion. If you don't remember that, then you're probably not in the moment going to think, well, let me use the therefore test. It's just like not even there. And you're just like, well, I'm going to go with this one. This one seems like the best answer. Moving on, right? That's treating the test as more of like an intuitive process, which is fine. I'm not saying your intuition is not good. It's good. We got to use that intuition. But the more you know, the more you can start turning this into a science and really seeing the answer choices in the same way that the test writers do. Sometimes you may feel like their answers are subjective. You're like, dude, this answer is just as good as that. Why are you choosing this one over that one? There's a reason and there's a rule behind everything, and they're going to defend it. And I have known people who have written into the LSAT about certain questions, and they write back 2-page, single-spaced explanations that go into exactly why the reasoning was what it was and what the answer is and why it's better than the other 4. Not just a little bit better, but like hands down, logically, definitively better. No ifs, ands, buts about it. This is the right answer. You can't argue with us. Goodbye. We're also writing this in this way so that you don't sue us. Right? They don't want to get sued, and they're very annoying in that way. You had a question?
Yeah. Can you like give me an example of like a conclusion and like using the if then, the therefore test?
Sure. So basically, what it comes down to is you're stuck between 2 claims in the passage, right? Like maybe one claim is anti-lock brakes sometimes fail, and the second one is drivers should drive cautiously, or something like that, right? And you're like, whoa, I'm not too sure which one of these is the main conclusion. So then you put the word therefore in between those 2 claims,
Okay.
and see which sort of flow makes the most sense. Like anti-lock brakes sometimes fail, therefore drivers should drive cautiously. That kind of makes sense. Drivers should drive cautiously, therefore brakes sometimes, or anti-lock brakes sometimes don't work. That doesn't really flow as much. Then you're like, oh, it's probably the other way. Therefore, whatever came after the word therefore is the main conclusion. Now that one's kind of an obvious example, but a lot of times you get down to two claims and you're like, at least in the harder conclusion questions, or even in other questions like a role question or a reasoning question, and you're trying to figure out exactly what the role is. Well, it might matter if it's coming down to whether it's the main conclusion or an intermediate conclusion. So, all right. Any questions about that? The bottom line here is that on the LSAT, there's a decent amount to learn here. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff on this quiz, but really a lot of these things kind of tend to overlap. So I feel like on the LSAT, you don't have to know a wide range of knowledge, right? It's not like you're being tested. They test you on different topics, but they're giving you the information. So you don't have to be an expert in science and medicine, all this stuff. What you do need to be an expert in is a few logical principles, and you have to know those really well. And if you know those really well, it doesn't matter what type of question they throw at you, you can figure out what to do and how to get the answer right. Okay, so that was that.